Dry look. You have seen it before. Someone posts a photo and something feels off. The muscles look almost fake. Too hard, too dense, too close to the skin. You cannot quite explain it, but you know something is not right. That feeling has a name, and there is a real biological reason behind it. Natural muscle has layers of fat and water sitting between the skin and the muscle itself. That layer acts like a cushion. It gives the muscle a softer, more lived-in appearance, even on someone who is very developed and very lean. When someone uses anabolic steroids, that changes. Steroids allow the body to build muscle while simultaneously dropping body fat at a rate that is not possible without them. The fat between the skin and the muscle disappears. What is left is the muscle sitting almost directly under the skin with almost nothing in between. The result is what people in bodybuilding simply call the dry look. The muscles appear impossibly hard and dense, almost like they were carved out of something solid and placed under the skin. There is also something happening inside the muscle itself. Natural muscle retains fat and water within the tissue. That is normal and healthy. Steroid users tend to have significantly less of that internal fat, which makes the muscle look even denser from the outside. This sign does not require the person to be enormous. Even someone at a modest size can have this look. Once you learn to see it, it is very difficult to unsee. Unproportional muscles. A natural body trains as a connected system. Every exercise that builds one muscle almost always involves several others. Heavy pressing builds the chest, but also the shoulders and triceps. Deadlifts build the back, but also the traps and the entire posterior chain. Everything grows together because it has to. Steroids break that logic. Certain muscles, the traps, the deltoids, the upper chest, the neck, tend to respond dramatically to anabolic compounds and can blow up out of proportion while the surrounding muscles lag behind. The result is a body that does not add up. Massive, almost spherical deltoids sitting on top of relatively ordinary arms, a thick, cushion-like upper chest with a noticeably flatter lower chest, a neck and trap region that looks completely mismatched with the rest of the torso. The question to ask is not whether a specific muscle is big. The question is whether it makes sense in context. On a natural body, size is earned through a chain of connected effort. When one muscle is dramatically ahead of everything around it, that chain is broken. Gyno. This one is hard to hide. You can control the lighting, you can control the angle, you can wear a shirt, but when you take the shirt off, this is still there. When the body receives large amounts of synthetic testosterone through anabolic steroids, it responds by converting some of that excess testosterone into estrogen. This conversion process is called aromatization. Estrogen is present in male bodies naturally and plays a normal role, but when levels rise significantly, it can trigger the growth of glandular tissue directly behind the nipple. This condition is called gynecomastia. The word simply refers to the development of breast tissue in a male body. It does not mean the person develops a full chest like a woman. What it looks like, visually, is a puffiness or a slight dome shape sitting beneath and around the nipple. The nipple itself may protrude slightly, and there is often a small firm mass that sits just underneath it. The key difference between this and simply having chest fat is behavior. Chest fat flattens out when the person is lean. Gynecomastia does not. The glandular tissue remains, regardless of how low the person's body fat is. This means you can see it clearly on someone who is otherwise extremely lean and muscular, which makes it one of the most revealing signs available. A very lean, muscular person with puffy or protruding nipples has almost no natural explanation for that appearance. The tissue did not grow there on its own. It grew in response to elevated estrogen. An elevated estrogen of that kind is almost always the result of aromatization from external anabolic compounds. And once it grows, it does not go away on its own. The only way to remove it is surgery. Of all the visual signs discussed here, this one leaves the least room for alternative explanations. Shredded 365. Building muscle and losing fat work against each other. To gain muscle, the body needs more energy than it burns. To lose fat, it needs less. You cannot fully do both at the same time naturally. This forces every natural lifter into a cycle. A period of gaining where they get a little softer, followed by a period of cutting where they get leaner but also smaller. Back and forth. Always a trade-off. A natural person who is very muscular in their off-season will look noticeably different from when they are at their leanest. Anabolic steroids remove that trade-off. The body can build muscle and shed fat simultaneously in ways that are simply not possible without them. The result is someone who looks the same level of jacked and shredded in January as they do in July, year after year, with no visible off-season. Natural bodies show their history. Enhanced bodies do not have to. Fast transformation. Natural muscle growth follows a predictable pattern. In the first year of proper training, most men can expect to gain somewhere between 10 and 25 pounds of actual muscle. In the second year, that slows to roughly 5 to 10 pounds. By the third year and beyond, progress becomes even slower. These are not small numbers, but they are spread across years of consistent work. Someone who goes from visibly untrained to very muscular in 6 months is not following that pattern. Neither is an actor who looks average in one film and then appears dramatically different just a few months later for the next role. The physique itself might be achievable naturally, given enough time. The timeline is what collapses the case. There is one exception worth knowing. Someone who starts severely underweight can gain mass quickly at first, because a large portion of that early gain is simply the body returning to where it should be. That can inflate early numbers, but even accounting for that, the most extreme transformations seen online and in film cannot be explained by starting weight alone. Speed is the variable that matters most. When the rate of change dramatically exceeds what the body is capable of naturally, the explanation is usually straightforward. Vascularity. Veins become more visible when body fat is low and the muscles beneath are well developed. That is completely normal. If someone is lean and muscular, you would expect to see some veins, particularly in the forearms and bicep area after training. That is not a red flag. That is physiology. The red flag is something different. It is a dense network of thick raised veins running across the shoulders, the chest, and the upper arms, while the person is simply standing still, not post-workout, not in direct sunlight, just existing. Veins that look less like veins and more like road maps pressed against the skin. Steroids accelerate fat loss, removing the subcutaneous layer, the thin layer of fat sitting just under the skin that normally keeps veins hidden. On top of that, steroids reduce collagen production in the skin, making the skin itself thinner and more transparent. The veins do not get bigger. The barrier between them and the surface simply disappears. The distinction to make is between normal vascularity and excessive vascularity. A lean natural person may have visible veins in their arms. An enhanced person often has visible veins across the entire upper body, including areas where veins are rarely prominent in natural people: the upper chest, the side of the neck, the front of the shoulders. The density and the location together are what make it a meaningful sign. Acne. The skin produces an oily substance called sebum, which helps keep it moisturized and protected. Sebum production is regulated in part by hormones. When androgen levels, meaning the levels of hormones like testosterone, rise sharply, sebum production increases significantly. The skin becomes oilier, the pores become more prone to blockages, and bacteria that cause acne begin to thrive. This is a well-documented side effect reported by close to half of all anabolic steroid users. The back, shoulders, and chest are the most commonly affected areas. Steroid-induced acne in these areas is often severe. Not a few spots, widespread, inflamed, aggressive breakouts covering large areas of the upper back, rear shoulders, and across the chest. The important distinction is timing and severity. Some people develop acne naturally due to genetics or other factors. That exists in completely natural people. The sign to look for is sudden, severe acne appearing on the back, shoulders, or chest of someone who did not previously have it, appearing at the same time as rapid muscle growth. If someone shows clear skin in older photos and then begins appearing with significant acne in these areas, alongside a dramatic physical transformation, those two things are almost certainly connected. It is one of the less controllable side effects, which is why it tends to appear in unguarded photos and candid footage rather than carefully produced content. Redness. Most people associate steroid use with size, even though if someone is bigger than you is the biggest sign that he's on steroids. Jokes aside, one of the most overlooked signs has nothing to do with muscle at all. It is the color of the skin. Anabolic steroids cause the body to produce more red blood cells than it normally would. More red blood cells means thicker blood, and thicker blood means higher blood pressure. High blood pressure is well known for causing visible flushing, particularly in the face. But steroid users often display a redness that goes beyond just the face. The chest, the shoulders, the upper arms, all carrying that same warm, flushed tone even when the person is completely calm. Indoors, with no pump and no exertion, no sunburn, no workout, just red. On its own, this sign requires more context than the others. Some people are naturally red, some skin types flush easily, but when you see it combined with other signs on this list, it is worth noting.